webinar. It's a huge pleasure to be here today with Tim and Paula. My name is João, and I'm the engineering site lead and general manager for the new Lisbon site. And I'm super excited to be leading this fireside chat. I have here two incredible colleagues that are part of the PagerDuty team and today we're going to talk a bit about the projects, the challenges, the technical parts of PagerDuty and how everything came together and where we are today and where we're going in the future. So it's a huge pleasure to be here with Tim and Paula, and I'll introduce them in a brief moment. But I just wanted to point out that I just joined PagerDuty, and one of the reasons I joined was because of the people. After talking to some of the people at PagerDuty and meeting people like Paul and Tim, it really got me excited around the challenge, around the possibilities and the company growth. And so, without further ado, Paula, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Paula Thrasher. I'm the Senior Director of Infrastructure and Security here at PagerDuty. So my organization basically builds a lot of the shared services, things like site reliability, our database, network services, and those sorts of things that the rest of the product teams build on top of. So we're sort of the platform under the hood driving the product.
And Tim?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, evening. I'm Tim Arapour, the head of engineering here at PagerDuty. Pretty much anything that a customer of ours ends up interacting with, using, leveraging, purchasing, sits with my organization. Been here roughly about 7 years now.
Okay, very nice. You both combined have an amazing experience in the industry. And so I just wanted also to ask the audience to also share who they are, post your LinkedIn profile if you want. If you also, just for the fun of it, post your favorite snack while you're at your laptop, and let's network, let's learn, let's just have fun at this webinar. So, Tim, you've been at PagerDuty for 7 years. That's amazing. So you've been through an amazing ride at PagerDuty. You lived the dream of going through a startup and now a company that has gone through an IPO and continues to grow. How was that like? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride for sure. You know, PagerDuty started by 3 ex-Amazon engineers that really truly believe that for anyone that's working in technology, there has to be a better way to quickly react when things go a little sideways. And you know, they felt the pain of wearing a physical pager. And I don't know how many people here in the audience remember what a physical pager looks like. But you know, they truly believe they could elevate the experience of any developer, anybody working in operations. Really saw this view of DevOps catching a wave. Seemed like earlier than a lot of other folks. You know, the company started nearly 13 years ago. The founders were told no many times before they finally got their first round of funding. Many people thought PagerDuty was just a fancy alarm clock, and we always like to say, "Well, look at us now." You know, the journey has been just one of just great growth, challenging growth constantly, right? And you know, as I mentioned, we just celebrated our 13th birthday, so we're actually sitting here as a bunch of teenagers, still trying to figure it out. It's not easy. We need help. We need help from probably many of you sitting around here to come on board and help us figure out the next great thing. As you mentioned, Joao, we're definitely not a startup. We're nearly 1,000 people globally. We have offices in major offices in San Francisco, Toronto, Atlanta, London, Sydney, and now Lisbon. And so, you know, we're still in that fun growth phase, trying to figure it out every single day.
You mentioned a very interesting point. PagerDuty was a company created by engineers, and one of the highlights, I would say, is the engineering culture that I found here. And Paula, you are at the core of what PagerDuty does as a lead of infrastructure, as director of infrastructure. So can you tell us more about our products and the growth? Because supporting all that growth must be challenging from also that point of view. So what opportunities are there for developers and technical people in general?
Yeah, I mean, when I came to PagerDuty not quite 2 years ago, I had been a customer of PagerDuty, like I'd used it, and what I liked was really like sort of the philosophy about how we should do IT, like really the thought leadership and some of the things around like full service ownership and really like true site reliability engineering. So, for instance, I see in our organization, you know, I come from sort of a traditional ops background too. I have both carried a pager and worked in a data center, even though we do things in the cloud now. But a lot of what we're trying to do is like a different framework. So we want to have a full service ownership team. So the product teams that we support, they own, you know, a set of features, a set of services completely. They code, they deliver. Our teams put into production around 200 changes a week. So when it's ready to go, it goes. And what we're trying to enable in our organization is, I don't want the experience where, you know, I need a database, I request something of the database team, 6 weeks later, I wait around, and then here's your database, because that's friction, right? That slows things down. What we want to have is a lot of self-service operations. So everything you need is there, but not just like raw resources. Like some of the things we build are, when you get a resource, we've already built in the capability to canary the feature. We've built in the monitoring solution so that teams, you know, kind of have an easy button to do all the things on that service that makes it easy to build a highly reliable service, a secure service. You know, we're trying to make easy the complicated, messy platform part so that the teams can say, I've got an idea and I can get this idea out and running in front of my customers quickly. I mean, that's the end goal of what we're trying to sort of enable. And I think it's, you know, not every company, especially if you I come from large enterprises, you know, we're doing things stodgy ways. It's a lot more exciting to have this philosophy, I think, and really be continuing to thought leadership about what is site reliability, what is it like to build a really reliable, robust engineering organization.
Definitely. And when I started using PagerDuty many years ago, it was just a tool for DevOps, mainly used for DevOps teams. But today, it has scaled tremendously, and our addressable market has gone from DevOps to something much larger. Tim, you have a lot of insights on this. Can you share a story around some customers that reflect this and how that increases the impact of PagerDuty in the world?
Sure. You know, one of the main underlying premises around PagerDuty is this notion of, we want to help you do your job better. That's really kind of where a lot of our motivation, you know, begins and ends, right? It's about anybody who interacts with our experiences, our platform, our APIs. We want to help you figure something out quickly and be able to do your job better. Because one thing we all know is that there's a lot of noise out there, whether it's in email, whether it's in, you know, Slack or Microsoft Teams, or name your chat tool of choice. And if we're sitting on the dev and ops side, you know, systems that are constantly sending signals to us, posting to logs. It doesn't matter. There's just a lot of noise. And where we started was this thesis that if we can help the one that needs to be able to do a thing, be able to do it better, then we give ourselves a better chance to keep working better and better. Now, where this has shown up over the last 13 years, without really a lot to do with anything we've done intentionally, it's just some of the beauty of the platform and the flexibility and the ease of use we've created over the years, is we see folks outside of developer operations or IT starting to use PagerDuty. And this has been going on for many years. So there's a handful of examples. One top of mind, I probably can't name the customer, but they're a very large brand that many of you interact with. They use us to help facilitate their human resources practices. So for example, maybe someone does a bad thing that breaks company policy, and a decision's made to unfortunately, you know, have to move the person out of the company immediately. Well, what happens is someone in, let's say, maybe in HR will actually create an incident that can then kick off a workflow across a wide variety of teams that have to work very closely together, where the number one thing that they're all being measured by is the amount of time it takes to get it done, right? Maybe it's a high risk situation. And then you see facilities or help desk or IT, the managers, other people in HR, legal, all get pages and alerts from PagerDuty to bring them into a live incident in order to make sure that the termination or the series of actions that have to take place get done very quickly. We haven't changed a thing in our platform to facilitate that. We have countless number of customers that use us that way. We have companies that use us in some aspects of even parts of IoT. In industrials, for example, we have, I think I can name this customer. If not, someone will come yell at me. So for example, General Motors, they have these big, factories that will fabricate things. And one of their divisions actually has us hooked up to monitors that measures the vibration on certain machines. When that vibration goes off, they can't manufacture at the same rate. It's alerts go off to alert people to know that they have to go and assess and understand and resolve the issue. And there's a number of things all over the map that have started getting used by folks that leverage PagerDuty over the years.
Very, very, very interesting indeed. It's amazing to see a product like PagerDuty being used so widely across many organizations. And going more back to the engineering side, to the technical side, Paula, can you tell us more about what makes engineering at PagerDuty unique? What key aspects should we consider? And when trying to connect what Tim just said, right, to some of the companies that we have here in Portugal using PagerDuty, which is impressive. Before I joined PagerDuty, I didn't know there were so many clients also here in Portugal and in Europe in general. So can you tell us more what makes engineering unique at PagerDuty?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. One is, it's always kind of nice. I've worked on a number of things over the years where you work on a system for another customer and you get to know that customer space. But like in a way, we use PagerDuty to run PagerDuty. And so we are our customer too. So, we had a hack week last week where we had teams work on anything they wanted. And I always love, I get to, I judge Hack Week. That's one of my favorite weeks of the year, because we as customers actually come up with some really interesting ideas for like what we want the product to do. And I know last year on my team, we incorporated a couple of Hack Week things into our actual roadmap, but I'm looking forward to us saying, hey, that's a really good idea. Let's actually roll with that. So I think, there's not a lot of times in your career you actually get to work on a tool you use. So I think that's like an aspect of it that's a lot of fun. I think another aspect is, as much as like, I've done a lot of stuff like sort of in that growing DevOps. I think it is actually still a space where we're still really trying to change IT from this traditional model of siloed organization teams, very, rigid, like to this, like I mentioned, sort of the continuous delivery type stuff. Like we're actually, there really aren't, there are other, I think, startup companies, other smaller companies, but trying to do some of this at scale, I think is a really interesting thing as we continue to grow the company. It's easy for a 10-person organization to like move quick. It's harder when you get to 300 people to move at that same velocity. To try to balance letting us continue to move at the speed, like especially our customers, like as a SaaS product, they expect us to keep updating it, right? It's like constantly getting better. That's kind of one of the reasons that SaaS is so great. But we're also trying to build something that's very, like there's a lot of, I think the team is very committed to, they take seriously that we have to be resilient. We have to be really, like there's a lot of deliberateness to building something that is relied on by so many people. We're the system that goes off when your stuff breaks. So this is the one moment where you don't want that system that you rely on so deeply to go down. So we take very seriously, I think, just the importance of us being very careful. And so there's always kind of, I think, a balance. And I think that's a nice, challenge because it has the seriousness of building something really reliable, but maybe like the fun of building something for yourself. I think it's kind of like a nice mix in the culture to do a little bit of both.
Thank you so much, Paul. And so, Tim, one question for you around expansion. We're at the stage where the PagerDuty is now global, and you chose to expand to Lisbon. I have two questions around that. First is, well, why Lisbon, right? There's so many companies coming to Lisbon, but one of the things that surprised me at PagerDuty was the the amount of studies and the amount of decision-making processes that was around coming to Lisbon. And there's a really strong bet in here at building an office and building a culture and having people thrive here. So my first question is why Lisbon and why all that? The second question is, and this is a great challenge for many companies that are at our stage, which is, okay, we're expanding. How do we connect the Lisbon office to the other office? How do we guarantee consistency? How do we guarantee that time zones consistency, which is a challenge for all companies? And I worked at Microsoft and other companies before, and that was always present. How do you see this?
Yeah. So first question, why Lisbon? Why not somewhere else? A few reasons. Now, we take a step back here at PagerDuty. We are we are a group of people that I think are very motivated to make really well-informed decisions, right? We think we're more right than we're wrong in that capacity. And this isn't just at like, Paula and Tim and Joao's level. This is at all the levels, right? So we actually do like to, collect some data, both the quantitative and the qualitative sides, just kind of how we approach things. So from a quantitative side, we look at many of the studies, information that's publicly available, and we ask whether it's local recruiters, local real estate firms, other companies, colleagues, etc., about data. And then we start to then get in the qualitative side, which is we have a lot of customers in the region across Europe. I think we've got close to 2,000 customers, right? 2,000 distinct customers. It's Europe is not necessarily new for us, right? Now, the wonderful country of Portugal became more new as we went through our discovery and our journey there. But we were able to ask a lot of companies, a lot of colleagues across our networks about, the pros and cons and what should we consider, what should we not consider. And a few things stood out about Lisbon for us. One is just the thriving market landscape there from especially the corridor from Porto to Lisbon. That really stood out for us. The number of universities that are around that continue to graduate fantastic people. There's something about when you have other big companies nearby that it's not by accident, right? So there's a natural draw there. The other thing is we wanted to build almost like a community, an extension of the PagerDuty community. And we talk a lot about community here at PagerDuty. We believe deeply that part of why we want to exist is to help put a positive dent in the universe. We want to make the world a better place in our own special ways that we can. And part of that is by creating a thriving and vibrant community, both with our customers, with our end users, many of you, but then also our people. And we believe our people have a responsibility to keep carrying the torch on making community better. And Lisbon and Portugal really stood out from that same sense of how important community is, how important not just the people you work with, but the extension of your life goes on. I mean, that really stood out from compared to a lot of other locations we were looking at. And plus, what I hear is Lisbon's a very desirable place to visit. We have no shortage of people that want to come back and forth from Lisbon. So I'll be out there in June in a very quick stop on a family vacation through Europe. So we're going to stop in Lisbon just to check it out. That all those reasons put together is why Lisbon stood out for us. Second part of your question, remind me again. What was the second question?
So the first was why Lisbon, and the second part was um,
Oh, what was the second question? Do you remember?
The first
so
answer was so good.
no, the second part was, how do you connect the offices of
Yeah.
Lisbon
Oh,
to
the
other
time zone.
regions?
Right. How do we keep that
How do
connection
you
across?
tackle the
Yeah,
challenge between time
Excellent.
zones?
For many years we've had this notion, especially within PagerDuty, but even before COVID, around being able to work well in a distributed manner, right? Especially between product teams and engineering teams, we were very focused on making sure you didn't have to be physically right. So the advent of being able to use, whether it's GitHub, Slack, name your video of choice. All of that was a norm within us. Before pandemic, we were primarily split between East Coast and West Coast time zones in North America. Now that has grown, especially with Lisbon coming online. We have worked with other partners that help with some development and product work in other countries across the Atlantic from us. So it's not new. I think part of what we're looking at is how we get more time zone savvy. So we already situated where some teams are more West Coast based, right? And that's great. Some teams are a little more East Coast time zone based. And I think now our main goal is that, and Joao, for you to help with this, is to ensure that that our teams are structured in a way where you don't have an over reliance or dependence on other teams in other parts of PagerDuty, right? This doesn't mean that we don't want to work well together, but we want to create a sense of independent ownership, independent accountability that the groups in Lisbon can absolutely thrive. And we also, the fun part about being in Lisbon as well is that very close proximity to our London office, right? In the UK alone, for example, we've got something like 600 or 700 customers, distinct customers in the UK alone. By virtue of that, we're big believers. I know I'm a big believer in Paula as well, is getting close to the customers just helps us think back to making well-informed decisions. As builders, some of the biggest decisions we make is how we approach a problem. How much time do we spend? How we approach it? Do we shortcut it? Do we actually invest for long-term, etc.? Some of that can be very much, one of those inputs can be very much brought in from customers. And so being in Lisbon, now we have some product managers, designers, and developers that are going to be very close to our customers to really understand what are other unique problems in the region that we don't readily see, right? And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. We will not be doing things where all of a sudden everyone has to be on midnight calls or 6 a.m. calls, things like that. That's what we're intentionally looking to avoid. Many of us have been around long enough. We know how poorly that works for the people and the delivery that ends up happening through our teams.
Yeah, and I can definitely back you up there. The message that you've passed to the organizations was well received, and people are being super respectful of the time zone here.
And I'll add to that. I feel like because I live, I'll say outside New York, maybe a ways outside New York City, but nearest to New York City, and I'm like right in this in between zone, right? So it's like the same. Actually, I think it's the same distance for me to fly to Lisbon as it probably is for me to fly to San Francisco. So we're in between too, and I actually think that, to me, that was actually a big piece of my lobbying for why Lisbon was such a great location, was because it does let us have this overlap. And I think there is something to, we weren't quite ready to jump to this thing where people were like truly follow the sun and there was no amount of connectivity between teams. So I think that's kind of a nice in between. Yes. We still want to be respectful of time zones. I certainly don't want to be on evening meetings and, wouldn't expect anyone else to either. But it's a nice in between, and that we have a mix of being able to let people work in their time zone with teams and have community where they're at, but also have enough sort of connective glue to be able to do this, where, there's an overlap of time and none of us are doing this at midnight.
Definitely. And we can have some work-life balance. No, definitely that has been something that I see a strong culture around it. one of the things, just to highlight one other thing that Tim mentioned, I think it's really important, which is we're not only trying to expand PagerDuty capacity, we're building something new in terms of business, in terms of
Yes.
having new parts of the product. And so this, I think, puts us as an advantage because we're building something new, but we have the support of an entire organization that is well structured, well thought, has already gone through some growing pains. And so I think that really plays out as an advantage. I've worked at large companies, at startups, and I think this combines the best of both worlds. So I think that's great. But we have a lot of technical people in the audience. So one of the things that I want to highlight and reinforce is also some key points around our tech stack, around the technologies, around some of the processes that you mentioned. And you two are probably the best people to talk about this. So Paula, let's start by you, and then Tim, we'll go to you also to bring up some nice points around that.
Yeah, well, so I guess starting with the platform. So we build a lot on top of our partner, Amazon. I love them as a partner. I think they're really a leader and innovator in building a solid platform for us. And we've really, we have a really good partnership with them. And it really is a partnership where we're strategically using them. And then sort of on top of that, we've built a platform. So everything we do is infrastructure as code, building some technologies on top of that. We're making a transition right now. Our platform used to be based on a product called Nomad to do container orchestration, and we're moving to Kubernetes, which obviously people will be more familiar with, and there's a reason we're moving there as well. And so that's a major project that we're rolling out this year to make that transition, over to that sort of platform ecosystem. The rest of the platform sort of is a lot of the usual suspects, as I mentioned, in the infrastructure as a service space. Technology wise, languages, we've got a couple different languages, especially as we've acquired a couple companies. So a lot of our core stuff is written in Elixir, which is Erlang, but we also have Java, we've got Ruby. Our front end is based on React, or we're moving in the direction, we're moving away from some other front end platforms to standardize on React. We've also, got some so we've got some other technologies in there, some of which we're standardizing. I think that's trying to find the balance between tailoring technologies for certain use cases and then trying to standardize so that we're not, managing a collection of things. But as we've acquired companies, we've picked up other languages and things. So that's the everlasting balance. But a lot of where we're, what's nice is that we're really truly we are kind of a DevOps native company. We're cloud native. We've got a lot of the infrastructure. We've got a lot of really solid foundation there. And then I think we're very open to, being able to say for this kind of problem we're solving, this would be a really good technology fit for us, and have a process to really, maybe that goes back to the Hack Week. People have tried out technologies and said, this is a really cool thing, I want to run with it. So, there's definitely opportunity for us to be bringing in other, evolving that over time. So I think that's also kind of nice. We're not, we're open to really solving, the next problem with the right tech, tools to do it.
Thank you, Paul. And as you mentioned, PagerDuty is the I would say the light behind several platforms. So if anything goes down, PagerDuty needs to be there, and so that's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. And I just, as a crazy factoid, when Amazon or Microsoft or Cloudflare, any of these big things have an outage, we actually have a report we call "If the Internet is Broken," so we can see the spike and our stuff. And yeah, that's Tim's favorite report. And when Amazon had an outage in their US East data center, we saw 5 million incidents get triggered within a 5-minute span. It was basically, a normal load. It was all of a sudden the elasticity of our platform just went. So a lot of what we have to build is truly elastic, scalable stuff. It's not, static running on a server box. It really has to scale up and down, and it's a little bit like, I come from a networking background. It's a little bit like networking. You've got to be able to handle the surge and load, and that's to me, it's a really interesting technical challenge to solve for, because it's great. Our success is our own challenge. The more customers we add, the more we have to figure out how to keep scaling our platform and keep supporting it and handle that crazy moment when it just goes wild.
Yeah, and I think my background is software engineering, so I think that as a software engineer, that's really a huge motivation. The fact that you need to handle these peaks, these loads, these guaranteeing that everything keeps working, I think it's one of the best things that an engineer could ask is to try to solve these type of problems at a large scale. And Tim, there was one thing that caught my attention that I think it's amazing, which is we talked about hack weeks. Can you tell us more about that and more things to add
Yeah,
to
no,
complement?
I'd love to. I want to just build on one aspect of what Paula was talking about, because I think it's an important thing about PagerDuty. This, as she was talking about, like when she's talking about when part of the internet is broken, right? The expectation is that PagerDuty is still online. So when you think about that from whether it's a software or a system design perspective, we are constantly looking to architect for failure of some kind. And the real, I think, secret sauce of PagerDuty comes in not just in like technology choices. I'm a big believer like technology is like part of the tool in the toolbox. It comes down to the people. How well equipped are the people to be able to be forward looking on some of these things? But then also, when we couldn't guess right on a bunch of things and things go sideways, how well are we equipped to react to it, right? And that's some of the other things in terms of the engineering culture at PagerDuty that we believe is worth investing in, right? So for example, if you want to go Google Failure Friday PagerDuty, the blog series and some talks we put out numbers of years ago about our approach to the world of chaos engineering, right? And how we practice that, how we expect our teams to actually be able to learn how to manage when something goes sideways. And, you know, were you prepared? Was the system prepared? There's a lot of practices to hone in on. And we do like to believe that every individual here, especially in the world of engineering at PagerDuty, you're expected to approach things like a mechanic, not just a passenger in the car, right? We want you to understand how things work, and if you don't know, we'll help you, right? So really building that bridge between traditional development, traditional operations, and removing all the fuzziness and the gray area it's a big part of our culture and our ethos here at PagerDuty. So I just want to add that because I think it's an important distinction in the grand scheme of things. That the process and practice and how we approach things is as important as our technology stack at the end of the day.
Definitely, and I think you bring up something that connects to my following question, which was we don't only build technology, but we need to build technology with a purpose. And you've been here for 7 years, so can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, you know, with and this actually goes a bit in line with your Hack Week question. So, you know, with Hack Week, 2 times a year, 1 week in the spring, 1 week in the fall, anybody in the company can take time off the clock and work on whatever they want. And what we naturally start to see is many cross-functional teams across the company, not just engineering, not just product and engineering, but we have sales involved, we have solution consultants involved, we have sales operations, marketing, HR, et cetera, come in, and we build solutions to problems that are very near and dear to people's hearts. And what happens is then people then present these out, and there's a whole panel of judges, like Paula mentioned. And you know, we give out quirky prizes and all that fun stuff. But some of our most, I think, interesting and compelling and important contributions, not only to our customers but internally to ourselves, have come out of Hack Week. Okay. And that is very intentional and purposeful. We do approach many things with intent and purpose in mind, right? Because we have this thing about us where, given the way our customers depend on us and how we get integrated in, like PagerDuty's cost of being wrong is very high to someone on the other side, very high to the customer. It's an important distinction, right? We don't have the benefit of seasonality of traffic that you can predict like in e-commerce. And I spent a long time in payments and at PayPal and everything, where we knew in June we were starting to harden systems and buy hardware and get everything provisioned for the holiday rush, and then you get a little bit of a break after January 7th. We don't have that benefit. We always have to be ready for anybody else's worst day, or for everybody to have a bad day, right? And when we approach technology and those decisions, right, I'm a big believer in pragmatic, practical solutions. The next shiny thing we can experiment with, but it probably won't be ready for our primary customer traffic anytime soon. But that's okay, because we still need a healthy balance of learning new things and being forward-looking. But when we say we're going to do we're going to support 200 changes to the live environments a week, and that'll vary depending on the team's needs, right? I'm a big believer in I'm like fix forward kind of guy, not necessarily rollback. I want to keep fixing forward. So keep pushing on that front, because I do believe if we can allow our developers and all of our teams to be able to do what they need to do as fast as they need to do it, or as careful as they need to do it, part of some of the underlying responsibility, especially in Paula's teams, is to help these teams make sure they can do it safely and responsibly, right? So it's not by accident we can support 200 changes a day. It's actually very intentional. When we look at some of those classic metrics, like our change failure rate, it's like below 0.2% or something crazy like that. So we've really honed in on some of these pieces. People ask me all the time, why are we still running our own MySQL? Well, because it makes sense. I mean, there's some things you want to have some control over, some things that you actually do really well, versus taking the next shiny thing off the shelf. In some cases, we want that next shiny thing because it's been tried and proven. But ultimately, a lot of things are driven from a strong sense of intent and purpose. And what is that next outcome we're trying to make true?
Thank you. And so, Paula, one of the things, and we're wrapping up, but I wanted to end around the mission for PagerDuty, around the values and the purpose, and what that means to you both. And so, Paula, starting by you, what is your favorite value? And I think here at PagerDuty, one of the things I noticed is that many times you have values posted on a website, and these are just marketing, but I see this at tutorials, at day-to-day. I think people really live these values here. Can you tell me about your favorite value, and how does that personally also means what that personally means to you?
Yeah, I have a favorite, and then I'm going to sort of connect it to like how I think connects to some of our other values. I really like the customer service one, but I actually am going to simplify it to service, which is customer service is your customers, the paying customers, but it's also your people. Like my customer is the other employees, right? And for a lot of us, customers mean us, other teams, other things. So it's employees too. It's also our community, and I think that like service mindedness, that's all encompassing of like we care a lot about service, is like that to me is the most, just coming in from the outside, that was the most evident value to me. And I really personally connect with that because I think all of us, many of us, are more motivated by delivering a service, like really doing something meaningful, than just, I turned a crank and I made somebody money or something, like it, I like that there's a connection to what we're building and everybody is really aligned. And I think to me, there's something about even just the original use case of PagerDuty. I joked I carried an original pager and I had no agency. This was my schedule. This is your schedule. I don't care if you've got, you're planning to go out with your friends, whatever, tough luck. Here's your pager. You're on call. The fact that PagerDuty had things like an override, like that there was some like humanity to being on call is hard. And there was a humanity aspect to it. I think there's like just this inherent sense of service there. And then I think where that connects to one of the other values that became really apparent is there's one around sort of run together and the collaborativeness. And I think that quality exists because we're all aligned on the same mission around service. Like that works because the service is there first. So that's my 1.5. I cheated. I had 2.
And you, Tim?
Yeah, build on what Paula is saying, our 3 founders, they started this company in kind of a unique mindset compared to how many other companies may have started in kind of adjacent spaces. So one of the big things was around, it was about the people. Our platform, our product architecture, almost the way we bring things to life, very much has the people in mind first versus the machines. It's a big distinction because we believed that we can elevate everyone's day to a new level. It's imagine for developers, what is GitHub and even tools like Jira and what? It's made some of our jobs a little bit easier, a little bit better over time, really elevated the developer to like this first-class citizen. We believe that that activity around support and or resolving and almost, terrible analogy, but firefighting, so to speak, ought to be elevated in a similar manner because it's that important. And now we've evolved over time and all that. So there's a big people component to a lot of the things that we bring to life, how we approach things, how we orient. There's one value that is termed as bring yourself. And that one I think is super important because at the end of the day, from a community perspective, we believe you ought to, every single person has to have a strong sense of belonging. Every single day, every single interaction, every single moment, right? And if you can't be your true self, then, one, that's a terrible way to spend the day. Secondly, though, from a company, as we continue to build this company, expanding and coming into new cultures and new geographies, then we know that we aren't going to be able to be successful as a company. It's all about the people. It's our customers, our end users, and our people. So that one stands out for me.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to wrap up by saying that I love the message around the giving back to community, that the fact that we're not just building technology, but we're giving something back. And one of the things that I found really, really curious was the fact that non-profit organizations are actually clients of PagerDuty, and that we offer them our product in order for emergency situations, for things that ONGs take care of. And I think that that's amazing. And not only that, but we do sponsor some volunteering work. So every employee has 20 hours of volunteering work. And I think that's, it's not only a good differentiating point, but it's also something about giving back to the community. And that's a super strong message. So I wanted to thank you a lot for this moment. I think it was a great conversation, and thank you for joining us today. Sorry?
It goes by too fast.
Well, when you're between friends, it's things usually go fast. But now we'll go to some questions that we have on the chat, and let me just. So one of the questions we have from Pedro is: it seems that there is a strong engineering culture at PagerDuty. What are your main strategies to maintain certain aspects of the culture while expanding to the tech hubs? Paulo or Tim, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I think, I guess we're going to keep tying in the human piece. To me, culture is people first, and that's, the people make the culture. The culture is the result of the people, not the not the other way around. So to me, some of the things that we continue to do as practices like that help people make connections, even just some of the stuff like Tim sort of loosely referenced, like Failure Fridays. Just to be clear, actually, we've sort of stopped doing them on Fridays because it turns out nobody wants to test your stuff on Friday. So the most common day is Thursday and or Tuesday for us to do our Failure Fridays. But we do these events where we get multiple teams. As you get bigger, what happens is, what you used to do on one team, now 5 teams have to come together to build a really cool capability, right? So there starts to be more team-of-team things. So as we start testing things or start validating things or even designing and brainstorming things at that team-of-team level, we create these events where different engineering teams come together, people work together. And that's, both sort of a mix of virtual and Zoom person event. And I think that becomes like a really connective tissue, because I think one of the best ways to create connectivity is you and I working together on a problem, right? So to me, some of those engineering practices about validating our systems in production, or even like Hack Week, working across boundaries, or PagerCon, which we didn't mention, doing this once a year thing, like just continuing things from the everyday activities that we do as part of building our software all the way to the sort of formal events like Hack Week we've come together. Like, I think it's just maintaining a certain cadence of those things happening that helps us keep that culture, first. And then some of it just is, honestly, I think once you just sort of philosophically say, like, we're a building company, we make things. That's an important part of our, I think there's a certain commitment to, like, just wanting to curate, like wanting to invest in that. That is just sort of part of the DNA of, like, we just want to be constantly talking about technology, and, like, just because that's who we are. I don't know if that's even intentional. That's just a thing you do because everyone here, like, really, what I love is that everyone is just really passionate about tech.
Thank you so much. And I think that was a lovely ending. So all the folks in the audience, you can check our positions in the link that says ready to apply. Also, we have positions for full stack, backend, front end, and a lot more will come as well. So if also we have remote positions, hybrids, in office, so we're very flexible on that end. And if you want to meet us in person on Thursday, you can find us at Head and Rocio in Lisbon. And feel free to stop by and we'll have a chat, we'll have a coffee if you'd like. And thank you so much once again, Tim and Paula. It was an amazing conversation. And thank you so much for giving us such a great view over PagerDuty and what PagerDuty does. Thank you. Have a great day.
Fun. Thanks, everyone.
We do have here another question from Pedro.
Okay, so we have here another question that came up. There's a question around collaborative time zones. So is it expected to have hybrid teams across hubs?
I think it's a fair expectation to kind of like what Paula was mentioning about the working with each other. No better way to do it. So, for example, part of Paula's organization, the SRA team, that really help us find more and more better ways to keep running reliable software, especially in the cloud. We have SRA team members across North America. We want SRA team members in Lisbon as well. And there's no doubt at some point those folks will work together. So there will be some aspect of that hybrid piece with the empathy that we need to have the overlap, and that we should have the overlap, but the overlap shouldn't always be necessary. I think is part of the key. We want people to be able to work fairly independently as best as possible as we continue to build up the teams locally.
Thank you, Tim, for clarifying. And I think now we're out of questions. And once again, thank you for your time. And Christine, I think we can call it for a day.